Hi, I'm Tony Oliver. I'm the development producer and the head writer for season and a half ago. And co-producer of the show and the voice of Saba.
I'm Mark Litton. I'm one of the writers for the show, from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to Zeo, Turbo. I did a little bit of Lightspeed under another name. And VR Troopers and Masked Rider.
And you survived.
And I did.
I'm Doug Sloan, and I worked on the first, what was it, 4 seasons of Power Rangers, and then I worked on Dino Thunder and Ninja Storm. I directed, wrote, produced. What else did I do? Acted. Let's see. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, that's it.
I started off as a writer's assistant on MMPR, and I worked several seasons after that, a lot, so, a lot.
My name is David Fielding. I was the face of Zordon.
I am Salon.
And I fired all these people.
I am Mrs. Shooter.
Then I'll look the one for myself.
I'm not telling who I am. They'll press charges. They know where I am if I do that.
Go ahead. Don't play. No, after you. Go.
So we have people lining up for questions. I'll start us off. This is going to be good for ADR. That's when you record a dialogue afterwards.
Yes.
This is your first time doing it. How odd was it switching to doing this for the first time?
You know what? It was extremely odd, but luckily we had someone like Tony Oliver who was like teaching us and was a great teacher. And you know, the cool thing is they kind of have a system, and once you kind of get in the groove of it, you do it for about 10-15 minutes, then it kind of becomes second nature. And you know, these guys were so patient with us, because you're right, it was our first time doing it, but it was amazing. And a lot of long hours, and a lot of, in the end of the day, we're tired, don't really feel like being here, and they always made it fun, so.
Well, for a lot of us, it was the first time we ever saw ourselves on camera.
Right.
You know, and I remember what, the giant one that we used to do, the first place we did it had a giant, like, 30-foot screen, you know, so you're not looking at a little TV of yourself there. And so when you come in, they had it queued up. So you come in and it'll be frozen like you in some pose.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So you're like, oh my God, idiots! It's so terrible! You know? And it's weird too, for those of you who don't know how ADR works, if you actually do a take, and everything is great except for the sound, it doesn't make sense to go back and refilm it. It's too expensive, time prohibitive, etc., etc., etc. So you just redub over maybe a few words or one sentence, and they give you a little cue to like get you, so you're watching it, and then you hear boop, boop, boop. And when the fourth one is where you have to start, and so it's really getting it. So you get a lot of boop, boop, Rangers, son of a... All right, try it again. So you get a lot of those outtakes. That's all I have. That's all I say.
Not to mention the fact that you guys had, the Rangers had, you know, 50 ADR lines in the helmets. I mean, that was like, you know, adding to that at the end of the day was pretty intense.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. That's like really like it's a long process, but it made so much sense because the sound, you know, like you said, anytime you were outside, you knew you had to, if we were at the park, we were going to have to redo all of that, basically, right?
Hi, my question is specifically for Tony Oliver. I know a lot of us on the toy collecting side, when we had the original Saba, it didn't have your voice, right? But we have this new Legacy Saba coming out, and one of the things in the product descriptions that is boasted about is show accurate voice. So, did they contact you to do the voice, or is that something you can't say right now?
I'm really not privy to how they're doing or what they're doing. I'm aware of things, and let's see how it goes. So cross your fingers.
Thank you.
So, this is for Zordon. You know, the very last episode of Space, Zordon got killed off. Right. I mean, I guess to melt down the villains or something, to get rid of the villains.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, how did you feel about that?
I wasn't really there at the time.
Yeah.
So I thought it served the show. I thought it was the best thing that could have been done to move the story forward, and it's something that Zordon would have wanted.
His energy lives on.
Yeah, I mean, and that's sort of the idea that I think that the writers and producers wanted for the character was that not only did these Rangers have these powers, but they also had some responsibility with them. And for Zordon, that was like his ultimate sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you. Good answer.
So, my question is for anyone who wrote during the series. What was the hardest Sentai footage to work around so that it worked for a Power Rangers episode?
Good question.
So many. Yeah, dude, you get 52 episodes a year from Japan, and 10 of them you can't use.
And we had to make 60 out of those 52.
Yeah, exactly. And back then, we had to use 11 minutes of footage because you could not use less than 11 minutes of footage, just budgetarily. So you had to use every snippet you could.
I'm trying to think the pineapple guy, which is one of the first ones we did. In fact, the first one we did was probably the most difficult because we were still learning how to make it all fit together and make this footage look like that. And if you look at that specific episode, there's a few special effects that if you look at it now, you're going, oh God.
And we didn't have the suits, did we?
Right?
We didn't have the suits at that point?
We had the,
we didn't have the monsters.
We didn't have the monster suits.
Right,
so
you could only use what the footage was. But later when we got the suits, you could mix and match, and it became way easier to do it.
I remember a note from BSMP in the first season that I worked, and it said, please refrain from using footage with monsters that look like genitals.
Which is tough because they all look like genitals. We said, how dare you yourself? So they
by the way, BSMP was Broadcast Standards and Practices. It's the Fox censors, although they don't like to be called that.
Thank you. Sorry, everybody, real quick, just want to introduce myself. I'm Justin Cody Slate, played Young Bull during the Rangers Back in Time series. Thank you. Sorry for being late. I just got here. It was crazy. Sorry.
It's all cool, man.
Good morning. My question is mainly for Jason, although anybody else that has a perspective can feel free to add to it. You were able to be on the show from the beginning and watch it transition to the 5 originals, adding a 6th, to new Rangers, to new suits, and changing it to eventually to it's a new thing every year. What was that transition like? What did that look like for you to see that?
It looked like this. Oh, I get to work for another year. That's the thing, and there's several people here who can talk about more than I. I mean, Tony was a very early champion of Vulcan Skull. Doug actually tried to, he worked on, and so did Jackie too, on developing the spin-off. So there was this whole, what the hell is Vulcan Skull? What are we supposed to do with these guys? The show desperately needed comedy, and the closest thing they had to it was these two bullies who, for all intents and purposes, should and deserve to get the crap kicked out of them every single episode. But at some point, when the heroes were beating the crap out of the people that made you laugh, the heroes suddenly looked like bullies, right? So they kind of had to re-envision how to do it. And we kind of collectively all latched onto this kind of Laurel and Hardy-esque slapstick that Paulie and I like to do because he's a fat guy and I'm a skinny guy. So, there you go.
There was a brief time where I can't remember exactly what went on, but Hein was mad for some reason at you guys and turned them into monkeys.
Oh, yeah.
Now, here's the great story about that. He turns them into monkeys, but they didn't want to pay for trained monkeys. So he got like the bottom of the barrel monkeys and trained them. And they didn't do anything. Fasting monkeys. They didn't do anything.
So we got ghetto monkeys, basically. Oh my God.
So I get this call from Hein, and he goes, "Yo, this is Hein. I want to know what is with these monkeys." I go, "Well, they don't do anything." "What do you mean they don't do anything?" They're not trained. We can't afford to train monkeys." "Well, you have to train them to do something." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not a monkey trainer." But shortly after that, back to Love and Skull thing, they realized that they did need Love and Skull desperately, and that was like, boom.
Well, I think while we were monkeys when we were developing the spin-off.
Oh, that was what was on,
yeah. Wow, my ego has been shattered. I thought I was replaced by a trained monkey, which look in the mirror one day and say, wow, I'm trained.
Not only was it
I'm an untrained monkey.
Not only was it not trained, but it had terrible psoriasis. Yes, and here he is.
I'm gonna go walk into the ocean.
Right behind you.
Thanks a lot, pal.
Next.
Hey guys, so I grew up with the show, came out when I was 3, and it was my childhood, so thank you for that. I have a question for the production team. As I got older, I became very interested in the behind the scenes of the show, and I've always been really fascinated about kind of the original footage hybrid season. So for the so-called Ju 2 or tail end of season 1 with the new, fresh monsters and fight footage, I was wondering if you had any creative input to Toei or any of those guys in terms of the type of episodes you wanted to tell or the type of monsters. I know obviously Tommy came back, so I'm pretty sure that was the stipulation, but I'm wondering if there was anything else.
No, we pretty much took what we got and did what we had to do with them, and mix and match, and occasionally combine episodes. There was an attempt to work with Toei and make some requests, and on some of them they would. Like for instance, we didn't want any mouths on the bad guys so that we could loop it and we didn't have to worry about lip sync and stuff like that. And sometimes they complied, and sometimes they went, "No, we're making a show for Japan." So no, we did what we did with what we had. As the show progressed later, and we were able to shoot more original stuff. That became a little bit easier. But the first season, it was a lot of that. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
I just want you to know my heart is racing right now.
You should see a doctor. We can go angels, we can get 2 aspirin.
I'm a nursing student. Anyway, my question is specifically for you, and this is Ashley. How did you handle stardom back then, but not only then, now 20-some-ish years later, like, how do you handle people constantly coming up to you and just trying to maintain it?
Well, when you're as attractive as I am, it's hard growing up. I don't go through an awkward stage, I went through a sexy stage. Okay. I'll let you answer.
I love being with him. I requested that he sit next to me, like always at any function. You know what? It blows my mind because Jason Frank and Steve Cardenas got in touch with me like 10 years ago. They were like, "You should start doing conventions. People want to see you." And my honest response was, "Do they even know who I am?" And they were like, "Are you kidding me? Like, people are asking about you. You should do this." So it blows my mind that you guys have kept this alive for 20 plus years, and it's so humbling to meet all of you and hear all your stories, and it's just so amazing. I tell people, I wish I loved something as much as you love it. The passion you guys have blows me away every day. So I don't really know how to deal with it. I just like want to meet everybody, and I want to laugh and get to know all of you, and just have a moment, So thank you.
That's great.
This question
is for Jason. How did you feel, and how do you think school felt about wearing that SS beret all the time, the Nazi?
Oh, yeah.
SS beret.
Oh, wow. That's cool. You know, he also had iron crosses on his boots, too. Oh, hey. Anyone Jewish in the neighborhood? Okay. Well, that's the thing that shows you how far the characters came. He was supposed to be a bad guy, and the guy who originally played Skull, Bobby, was legitimately intimidating. I mean, it's Larry here? No. He was just telling a story about after watching the dailies of him, like, getting up on AJ, when he's like, hey, Kimberly, how you doing? It's like, it put chills down your spine. So Skull's kind of that way, too, you know? So at one point, we replaced it with a question mark, so there's always this big question mark on his head, like, the lovable misfit Nazi.
We're all Nazis, lovable misfits.
You played a great lovable Nazi. I didn't know if I can tell you about that Doug was in, and he played a library policeman who basically was like a Nazi, you know? And like when you get into your books sometimes, they would come after you and invite you into the back room, and you would never come back. You were the most lovable Nazi I've ever seen.
My dad will be so proud.
So that's it.
Hi. Hi. What would the panel like to see in the new Power Rangers reboot? Like, what's your wish list? What do you want? What do you want?
I just want it to be entertaining for all of you. Like, the reality is that you're all here, and in the droves and the thousands, I've been able to have the pleasure of meeting you all around the country, and I want it to be entertaining. I want it to be everything you hope for. So you should write them, you should tell them what you want, because they listen, you know, and hopefully some of those elements make it into the film. Yeah. Keep it OG, keep it like, you know, it's like that's what kids fell in love with, so I hope they keep that feeling, you know?
Well, I think too, and I'd be interested what some of the writers think about this. We always talk about, you know, it was in such a young demographic, there was kind of an innocence to it, you know, and it seems like anytime you do a reboot, the demographic gets older, and I'm curious if you guys think that would be a good thing or a bad thing for Power Rangers. Jackie?
I think there's a sweet spot that you can appeal to both audiences, and I think there's a lot of seasons we found that sweet spot that it was able to be humorous and have a lot of heart and still have a lot of drama and suspense to keep older viewers in mind. So I think it's a delicate balance, but hopefully that's the balance that we'll strive for, and not alienate the young kids, because I've always said that Power Rangers is like superheroes 101, teaches people good knowledge about superheroes, and then they can go on to the darker things after. But I appreciate that thing.
Like drugs. I mean, I think a really good example is Guardians of the Galaxy. Did it really. I mean, it was like that movie to me is the sweet spot. There's, you know, you can take your 7-year-old to see it, you can enjoy it, and if they do it like that, a little tongue-in-cheek. And the best thing they did in that movie to me was they would sort of undercut those moments that could get really schmaltzy and stupid by making a joke. And if they do that in this movie, it'll be great. If they don't, if they try to make it too serious, it's gonna not, I don't think it's gonna work. What do I know? They made $180 million.
Oh yeah.
What about Tony and Mark?
Pardon?
Oh, what about your opinion?
Well, I'm going to agree with that. I mean, the thing that I loved about working on the show in the early days is there were no rules, and so we could be as entertaining as we wanted to be. It hadn't had a thing yet, you know, where it was an expectation. And I think as long as the show was always light and fun and entertaining and bright and can walk that line, which you have to. I mean, it's difficult to do. And it's also one of the things that writers and producers and creative people like to do, because it's a challenge to try to find that thing. As long as they keep it light and open and fun, I think it's going to do great, and that's what I like to see.
Woo! That's what we're playing you off.
And I'll concur with all of this so far. I mean, if you try to change Power Rangers too much, there's a stops working as Power Rangers, I think. And I remember there was one time where there was, we had a producer in for about a day or two, maybe 2 weeks, who wanted us to change the direction of the show a little bit. And I don't remember if you remember that. But they said, well, let's introduce some, like, one of the Rangers gets accused of racism, and when one of this happens, and it's like, well, really? You want to try that? And we said, well, all right, we'll write a script, but I don't think it's going to get approved. And we wrote the script, and sure enough, nobody approved it. And then that particular producer was gone about a week later. So if you really do, if you try to change the show too much in one direction, make it too gritty or something like that, it's just not going to work as the show that we like. So I'm hoping they stick to some of that.
One little story about that producer. I was in a meeting with him, and he suggested that we open the script. Two of the Rangers are walking down the beach, and they're talking about their favorite scene in The Way We Were. And I was like,
Because kids love The Way We Were.
And they'll get that reference, and I can write that. So that's kind of what. So that happened.
This kid, Fabian and then some good-looking kids and some snappy tunes, some of that rock and rhythm, how do I call it? What's the name of it? Grace and I is really going to be big next year, I tell you.
Hello, my next question is regarding your process. What did you draw from your real life that you put into the show? This would rather do actors.
Well, as far as Zordon is concerned, because he was such a mentor character, I mean, I drew upon all of the mentor characters that I loved growing up, whether they were inspired by Greek myth, like I felt Zordon had a very Zeus-like quality to him, and so that's what I tried to put into the voice. But also sort of a Professor of X vibe of like there's this mentor character who was trying to teach these powerful students of his the right path to walk in order to protect rather than I don't know, do something destructive. And if I'm correct in the show, the Rangers never were offensive. They were always reacting in a defensive manner, trying to protect. So.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was like I was a teenager, and I played a teenager. I obviously played a younger teenager, so for me, I just felt like, because I was replacing someone, I really wanted to, I knew that everyone loved Twee, and they loved her character, so I didn't want to be Tree. I didn't want Aisha to be that. I thought, it's not going to be fair to make them feel like, we got to choose. So I thought, Aisha should be different. She should definitely, be different from Kimberly, different from Trini. I wanted her to be fun, I wanted her to be bubbly, and when she fought, I wanted her to be tough. I actually was like, okay, I want her to be a little tougher and a little more scrappier, so I'd always tell the stunt team, give me a lot of kicks or give me a lot of punches or especially when the stunt double, schedule got crazy and they just kind of had to take over. I was like, make her flip a lot, make her really tough, and do all the things I can't do in real life. Make you look good, But when it came to just being her, my character out of costume, I wanted her to just be really bubbly, really fun, and try to make her really likable. Because that was the thing. We felt like we were a little bit behind the eight ball because we had to replace someone. We were like, oh God, are they going to like us? So, I just wanted her to be likable.
Yeah, me too. I tried to be like Trini a lot. Sweet and soft-spoken, beautiful, elegant, exactly. I'm not a very good actor, so it didn't come across.
Hi, I got two questions. Number one, what were some of the lines you've always wanted to say in the show, but never got the green light? And number two, will we get a Bulk and Skull movie stay home?
You get a Bulk and Skull movie?
Yeah.
I would love that.
You will. The rest of you, no.
What were some of the lines you always wanted to say but never got the green light for the show?
We can't say it in front of you folks. I mean, there's kids here.
All right, thanks.
Usually by the time it got to us, they had gone back and forth and round to make it just right. So we would just say whatever they told us, you know.
Where's the door to this
Trust the
thing?
script.
I'll leave the bathroom for 5 minutes.
Oh my God. Hey guys, I have a question for the actors. But for this question, if you could please channel your characters and answer in the voices of your characters. You want to hear from Zora, Skull, Aisha, and Bolt for this question, please? This is about Angel Grove. I mean, besides the fact that your city gets toppled every week with monsters from crushing buildings, going to a 6-year high school, whatever. What was the best part of living in Angel Grove? In your character voices.
Angel Grove, hi. That was the best part. The theme song we sang on the show.
Well, my voice has changed quite a bit since I was 8 years old. If you replay those episodes, it's pretty Mickey Mouse. In one episode, I wear the thing, and so it's pretty bad. Just me personally, all the great food.
Amazing. Organic.
Yes, right. It was like all healthy. God, what kind of kids hang out on a place like that? There's no cops on the streets. You ever see a cop in Angel Grove? No, you don't. Why? I don't know, but you know what that means? I don't go to jail, and I'm pretty good with that.
Alpha, where the heck is Comcast? I need my high-speed internet.
Next question.
He's go-to down there. He's like, I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but we have a moderator down here. He's down below. He's on at the height of the guy about to ask the next question. He's like, okay, so what you do in, out, in,
Just like that.
My question is for anyone who's in the Ivan Ooze movie, and my question is, what scene was the hardest?
Oh gosh. The hardest scene for me was the parachute scene. Simply because when we were shooting it, obviously we couldn't parachute out of a plane because the insurance wouldn't cover that. So they didn't want us to die. So they put us up in these harnesses, probably as tall as this building. And the cameras were there, and we had to do this whole green screen, and it was like flip, and then you had to look into the camera and do the whole thing. Everybody had to do theirs, and in the middle of the night, I had to do mine right after dinner. So I was like, okay. So I get up, and I'm like, flip, and I was like, and then I do it again, and with that time, it was like, bleh. Blew up everywhere. So if you notice in the movie, they don't really have any close-ups of me. They just like, I was like sick for the rest of the night. Yeah. I'm easily nauseous. What was your hardest thing?
The ones that they never filmed. Well, they were always changing what to do with Bulk and Skull because originally they were going to have us working for iNews. So Paul was like, yeah, we're bad guys again. And I'm like,
we cannot have Bulk and Skull be bad guys. We need them for 5 more seasons. No, they will do nothing.
So like every day, the producer would be like, what are we going to do with you guys? Something we're going to do with you guys one of these days. Why don't you guys come up with some good ideas? Come back to me in a week and a half and we'll be like, okay. So we never know what we're going to shoot on any day-by-day basis. They would throw us in clothes and throw us in something and make us, pull all the air out of the room and say, okay, action.
Let's see what we do today.
So.
They had the best time though in Australia. Because of that. They actually got to see the country.
That's right. Hey kid, where you at? I'm on the set right now. Where are you? I'm on the outback. I got a kangaroo right here. Wants to say hi. Say hi, Skibby. Oh, it's right. Oh, you're working. Oh, sorry. I'll talk to you later.
Hi, my question is for Jason. Given the last scene that we saw you, saw Skull getting into a limo, would there ever be a chance we'd see a wealthy philanthropist funding a future Power Rangers team?
Philanthropist, Power Rangers, like, yeah, 5 teenagers that want to give money to charity. There's a lot of paperwork. Ready, Rangers, go!
Isn't that how Saban is, Mr. Saban?
He's healthy.
So no chance of you coming back with that nice limo?
Who knows? I mean, a meteorite can hit me. I mean, you know, things happen. So either I'll get hit by a meteorite or I'll come back. How's that?
You really need to come out of your shell a little bit, guys.
This is actually like an 8. I've seen him even.
His good is 2 together.
The caffeine is fresh.
Hi guys, I'm actually Wilson from Scotland. It's just to ask, what Jason David Frank, he came back to the series twice in the first 2 seasons. At what point was the decision made not to replace him as the White Ranger, with Brad Hawkins as the White Ranger?
Decided not to replace Brad Hawkins as the White Ranger.
I'm not sure if I was even privy to that discussion. Usually decisions like that were based on a combination of business, when contracts happen to expire and when they happen to pick up, and when they took a look at the upcoming footage that we were going to use. So I don't remember why or what that. I'm not sure if I was even in that meeting, but by and large, it was probably a combination of the two. A contract was up and footage really wasn't going to support. We would have to kind of bend things like we did. We had to bend the footage a little bit when we first introduced Tommy, and then to continue him and then move him later. So I'm sure they were running into something like that.
And I think Tommy's popularity was just so immense at that point that Chaim and Shuki kind of like, you know what, we've got to keep him in the show somehow, so let's just do this. Yeah, and by the way, your accent is awesome. And would be great on the show I work on now. I'm going to say. Thanks. Speak to us. Oh, you just have to look at IMDb.
Okay, so my question is specifically for Jason. In Power Rangers Samurai, one of my favorite parts was them bringing Bulk back, and then again at the end where Bulk and Skull have the reunion. But we all had this question in the back of our head that maybe you could shed some light onto as your character. Who's Spike's mother?
So this goes to Aisha.
Yes.
When you turned into ninja powers with what's his name? Lindor.
Yes.
The helmets stay the same from the dinosaurs, and the costumes didn't change either.
Right.
I know. I noticed that really as well.
I know, me too.
So.
Why is that? There's not enough greenery.
That's what I would assume. I don't know. You really should ask them. I don't know why did they stay the same. I think, you know what? It was so popular, maybe.
That's a great answer.
Maybe it was they just didn't, I don't know. Maybe they just didn't have the money to change it.
Yeah.
Or they didn't want to spend the money. They had the money, but they didn't want to spend the money.
I mean, you changed it a little bit with the loose lines.
Well, I think because we had the ninja costumes from the movie, they thought, oh, good idea, let's use the ninja costumes in the series. But I don't know that there was ever, a thought prior to that. But because the ninja costumes look so cool in the movie, they thought, let's use it. But they didn't, it didn't change everything completely. you know, so I think that's probably what happened.
Okay.
You're welcome, thank you.
Hi everyone. We flew from Toronto to be here, so
thank you.
So my question is, I remember during the first few seasons of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers as a kid, and all these parents were up in arms. We weren't allowed to bring Power Ranger paraphernalia to school. It was so horribly violent. So back in that time, in the absence of social media and everything, was there anything that was collectively done by you guys to kind of react to that and maintain a good positive, I guess, persona for the show?
Yeah, I mean, we had to do tons of PSAs. Tons and tons and tons, because I guess, you know, they really wanted us to explain that, you know, don't fight each other, kids, you know. But you know what, one thing they did that I hated that they did was that they stopped letting us do civilian fights, which is, that's what we fought as ourselves, you know. And eventually, you know, we would do them all the time, and eventually we did less and less and less, and it was always, we would just go right into the costume. So I hated that though, because I thought kids really identified with us, seeing us as teenagers fight. You know, it really, you know, you really just grabbed onto it. It wasn't just a stunt team doing it. So, but yeah, I mean, those are some of the things. You guys could probably, there are probably more discussions you guys are privy to than you are.
We also spent an awful lot. You notice that the Rangers, first of all, would never attack. They would only fight aliens and only if they were attacked. And then you also notice they would never hit below the belt or above the neck. So everything was always chest. We also hit a lot of brains before bronze and really pounded those kind of personal responsibility messages. And there was a study actually done by, I think it was Harvard or Princeton, about Power Rangers, interestingly enough, and about the violence. And what they came to, in 2020 did a report, John Stossel was going to eviscerate us, and he ended up at the end of the show going, well, I noticed that they were jumping around after they saw the show and kicking, but interestingly enough, they weren't kicking each other. And by the end of the show, by the end of the Stossel show, the 2020 show, he said, I'm going to let my kids watch it. And the Princeton studies pretty much said that. We put so many messages in that the kids understood that the violence was fantasy, but we spent an awful lot of time on the script side making sure that would happen, and I know they spent an awful lot of time on the production side making sure it looked right so that the kids wouldn't be impacted badly.
Okay, we're just out of time. I squeeze one last question in here before we have to wrap things up. We're going to have to clear the panel. They're going to do some setup in here, guys. So all of you came in here waiting for, you know, the 1 o'clock panel. You're going to have to clear out because we got to do some cleanup in here, guys. Sorry.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to say thank you for each and every one of you in the part that you played in the show that I find so great. Every one of you made a piece of it really good, so I just wanted to say thank you for that. Hopefully I can word this correctly, but my question is for the production team. In season 1, you had Rita, who was just Japanese and dubbed over for the most part, and then you went to an American created villain with Lord Zed, and then you went back to a Japanese one with Mondo, and it seemed like after that you had a whole line of American ones, and personally, I like the American ones. I thought they were really good, and I was curious if there was any sort of just a study or opinions of why you went from a Japanese one to created a villain and back and forth, I guess.
Well, I can speak to the Japanese one, and you were really involved in the development of the other ones. On the Japanese side, it was a matter of dollars and cents. We had a show, we had a limited budget, we had this footage we needed to use. We actually did send Jonathan Sikora early on out to Japan to shoot the real Rita Repulsa, saying a whole bunch of lines in phonetic English. Really? So if you notice, I want a headache, I'm getting a headache, that was actually, she actually said that in really bad English.
I did not know that. Yeah. No.
And at some point, the monsters just don't work for us. I remember getting some footage of the monsters had full mouths, all of them, and it would make it very expensive and difficult for us, so that's when these guys got into play and made new ones.
Yeah, I mean, the genius of what you guys were doing was to make Rita, that footage, look like those words were actually coming out of the mouth. And that always blew my mind. And when we started doing it, it's sort of, they leaked a little bit more money and a little bit more money and a little bit more money, and so we were able to create, Lord Zed came from the movie, right? Did he? Lord Zed?
No, Lord Zed was a question God.
They made a better suit for the movie, that's what it was. But, as time progressed, and even like during Ninja Storm and Dino Thunder, you know, we try to use some of what existed in the footage and then sort of plop our English-speaking people into it. You know, the whole villains thing has always been such a, for me, I always thought, and I got such crap for it, I was doing Ninja Storm, death threats, that I thought the villain should be funny, and, you know, to me, Lothar should have been funny, and he was funny, and I got like, oh my God, I would not believe Ranger Board came alive! Yeah, but, you know, that's what was great to me about it, then, is that you could make it whatever you want. You could find great actors. The guy who played Lothar was fantastic. But a funny story is, he read the Ranger boards too, and he was so disturbed that they didn't like him being funny that when he came back for the reunion show the next year, he had changed his character completely. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
His character was great.
Lothar was funny.
He's the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah, and it was such a bummer. Anyway.
Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, I'm getting a phone call. Hello, can you hear me? What? Can't really hear you. What did you say? What? What? Are you driving through a tunnel again? Do you have a bad feeling about this? Yeah, I do. Wait, what? Say it again. You know what? I'll call you back. I swear, freaking droids. I need to get an iPhone. I swear, Apple is way